Hi, I'm Dr. James Hampson. I am a guest natural horn instructor at Oberlin Conservatory of Music, Cleveland Institute of Music, and Case Western. I also own Hampson Horns. We're here to talk to you today about the slide horn. So I'm going to pass it over to Susan now.
I'm Susan Anderson. I have a Jackalope Brassworks, which is a repair shop out in Portland, Oregon. I do mostly repairs, but I also do some a little bit of building here and there.
And my name is Shanyse Strickland. I am a composer, arranger, and freelancer in the New Jersey and New York areas.
Like I said, today we're going to talk about the slide horn, the corno da tirarsi, the tromba da tirarsi. And I'm going to start off just talking about kind of where the inspiration came from in all of this. And the inspiration came from Annika Scott, if you know her. During the pandemic, she was posting Corona, not Corona, I don't remember the title, videos. And a lot of it was focused on this instrument here, which is the corno da tirarsi. And the idea behind this instrument is that Bach wrote for this instrument. We don't know what it is. And builders are trying to figure out how to make this instrument, and they took what's called the Reicha trumpet, which Reicha was Bach's number one trumpeter, and they added a kind of small trombone slide to it. So this is one from the 60s, and I had Richard Serafinoff build me this slide, and this is kind of how I got started on it. Just with this, you notice it kind of looks like a trumpet bell. There's not much conical tubing. The slide is small. And then I had been talking to Susan Anderson about this and looking at what's called a first plus horn. And what it is that it's a small hunting horn that's used in Germany that's normally in a green wrap. And so what we did was we took this instrument, which is in 4.5-foot B flats, the same length as a trumpet, and kind of wanted to add a 5-position slide to kind of add a little modernness to it to make it more versatile instrument. And so you notice the slide is much longer than the other one. And if you look at the bodies of the instruments, they are much different here. So this one, you notice a much narrower throat, smaller bell. This is a bit longer. This is 6-foot F, but it has a lot less tapered tubing, where this has a lot of tapered tubing. So if you think about it from a horn standpoint, this instrument is much better for a horn player. It's kind of more like, in a way, a flugelhorn that has a lot more conical tubing and the wide throat and bell. And what that does for playing is it gives a better in tune low register, a more mellow sound, something that us horn players like in sound. So I'm just going to play the instrument. It's a 9-foot long B flat instrument. So then you could get the different harmonics here going down. So now you have your 5 slide positions. And this is kind of where the collaboration between Susan and Shanyse comes in, is how to build this instrument, how for modern composers to figure this out. So I am going to pass it over to Susan right now, and she's going to talk about building the instrument.
Well, thanks for that, James. It was definitely a fun puzzle because basically we're taking something where it's an instrument, there's no existing copies. It only exists as a part in in a Bach cantata, Bach cantatas. And when you're approaching that, you have to take a lot of considerations into effect. James and I have had a lot of back and forth. This is where some of the collaboration comes in. It's we're texting each other, well, what about this? What about this? I read about this. I've seen this in a museum, but I don't think that it'll work. You could take that approach if you were building a period replica or a modern instrument. And we're trying to find something that's a little bit of both. We want to take something where it's influenced by like the Reicha trumpet that James showed, but we wanted it to have modern capabilities. So it's just, okay, how can I add enough tubing where we can get to a really low position to play more modern pieces? How can I add things that are modern aspects of an instrument, like that? Tubing slides, water keys, things like that. So there's a lot of back and forth that goes into it. And a lot of trial and error, which is always exciting. And fortunately, James was great as far as me being able to bounce ideas off of them and working through things that weren't perfect until I could get them fixed. So just to kind of show you, this is something that I'm working on and process right now. It's another version, and this one is a little bit more historical. And it's intended for the Baroque trumpet. So it's something, it's going to have a shorter slide, definitely a different type of mouthpiece. So there's a lot of variety that we can have. But I should say that that's kind of what I was originally thinking of when we were going to approach this project was, oh, I want to make something that's a little bit more of a historical replica, but I want it to use a part that's already pretty accessible, to use the first plus bell. I like historical music, but sometimes there's a gap as far as people that are interested in it and that people can actually access the instruments that play it. Unless you're going to a school, sometimes it can be a little bit out of somebody's price range to buy a really beautiful replica. And if you're curious about it or you want to have fun with it, it can keep you from exploring that, which is sad. So that was a lot of our reason behind that. But as we got deeper into it and we realized, oh, there's so many possibilities this instrument, we're not stuck with this older version. It really affected the design a lot. And as James started working with Shanyse, and she's writing this awesome piece, it's actually quite challenging, it's, this has got to move, and so I had to go back to the drawing board a little bit and just like really dial in, okay, we need to have a really solid fifth position on the slide. You need to be able to reach it as a player. You need to have a comfortable grip, so you're not focused on trying to juggle this instrument. You can focus on just playing the music and doing justice to the music itself. So it was really cool to see. And I've never, as a tech, usually I don't delve into the composition side of things. And usually so much of our instruments have already been designed hundreds of years ago, and the music has kind of followed the design. You as a composer, what an instrument is capable of. And in this case, it's all evolving together. So it was really cool to have that. And I'd love to hear, Shanyse, your side of it. We didn't get to talk much when we were actually doing the build. So.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. It's really just interesting to know and see the relationship between the performer, the composer, and the builder, because they're usually three separate entities completely. I mean, the performer has to buy the instrument in order to play it, obviously, right? But then, outside of getting cleanings or that's the thing, you have to have a adventurous experimental brain like James, to go outside of the box and, not just outside of the box, but to go back in the history and look at, we have these examples of these current French horns, but to look back and see what the horns used to be like and how they operate, and actually getting up close and personal with it. When James was kind of describing what he was trying to do, I was like, what? I personally hadn't heard of the Bach cantatas that actually had these instruments in them. And so when you first, I think, showed me the prototype that you created, Susan, I was just like, whoa. He played a few notes on it, played some of the kind of like the demonstration that he showed everyone just now. And I was like, wow. So this is a French horn that has a slide on it. It was very important to me that I defined it as such, because I know it's been compared to a trombone, but really as a horn player, of course, I'm biased and I'm like, no, this is a French horn with a slide attached to it. So just keeping those like concrete things in mind, I wanted to keep the things that we love about the horn, just because it has this, extra attachment that is not just extra, it's actually a part of the instrument. I wanted to keep those same characteristics, some of the historic characteristics that we're all used to, why we love the horn in general. So the first thing was keeping the tone of the instrument like the same. Everybody always talks about the color of the French horn. That's why they want to play it. So in the opening of my piece, Lazy Bones, I just have some very open fourths, some fifths. And James, I wasn't sure if you wanted to kind of interject and play a little bit for us.
Sure, yeah. So, yeah, it is a hard distinction because, I mean, it's kind of a cross between a horn, trumpet, and a trombone. I mean, it's kind of its own instrument, but as horn players, we kind of have this approach to it. As Susan was saying, we're also making one for trumpet players. So that's going to kind of be, in a way, a different instrument than what us horn players are doing and different capabilities because us horn players like a low register, but the trumpet players aren't going to really want that low register. So I'll play some of the opening you're talking about.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, James.
If you want to kind of talk about what this piece is, like it's a story.
Yes. So the title of the piece is called Lazy Bones. And I don't know, like I realized that no matter what form or what extra pieces the horn has to it, it's really a part of the human body. So that made me literally think about the human body and the voice and everything. So I was thinking about the actual bones, the things that the foundation of the human body that makes it work. And so this piece is basically an example of how that happens. So, the beginning part where it's like a very somber, kind of like, it's in the morning, like it's titled Awake or Stretch. So that is, the person just a human, just like getting up, like getting accustomed to the world around, and everything. But then there's a fast part where the bones start cracking. And I recently turned 30. So anybody who's like 30 and up knows that this is the point where your body starts making noises and very rhythmical things start happening with your bones. So I actually put that in this piece. So then the next section, and I would like James to play this because this is a very, like I was saying, I wanted to keep a very horn-like characteristic and personality to the piece. It's titled Move and Exercise. So after you've done your stretching and everything, now it's time to, move on with life and start moving. So it's titled Move and Exercise. Yes. So I mean, like that's like your common fanfare like horn thing. I mean, like, it only made sense that if I wanted to keep the characteristics and personality of the horn in this piece that I would insert that. And like I said, we all need a little exercise. So I wanted to put that in there. And I mean, so the last part, which is there's a bunch of different events that kind of happen in the middle, but towards the end, I wanted to put a very modern element into it. Over the pandemic, I know a lot of horn players were getting into pop music, even learning something about like jazz and everything. I had a few like classical horn players reach out to me to, talk about jazz and just pop music in general on the horn. So the last section is called like Lay Back and Groove. So this is after you've done your exercise, you've done, you're calming down a little bit. And now this is just like you kind of getting back into a relaxed and normal state.
Yes, so I will play the end of the jazz section into that normal state.
Yes.
This jazz section was the hardest for me being a historical horn player, so this is kind of my favorite part. That's the jazz section, and then here's the rest at the end.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, James. Doesn't James sound great? I mean, come
And
on.
I'm happy we all got together to do this talk. This collaboration has been awesome. It's been eye-opening for me, especially. Just learning a new instrument. I'm not a trombone player. Having a builder here, having a composer here, um, and yeah. And thank you for listening to us today. And these are actually available for sale on my website, Hampson Horns. All right. Thank you. All right.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.